Hello, guys. It's your girl, Karaleise. Today, we're going to talk about when should backlog refinement occur. And in the process of that, we're going to talk about what is backlog refinement, when you should do backlog refinement, who should be a part of your backlog refinement sessions, and how you conduct it, and what is your role as a business analyst in the backlog refinement process. So don't go anywhere. I will be right back. Okay, well, welcome back. Thank you. So we're talking about backlog refinement today, and I haven't done any video dedicated to backlog refinement, which is strange because I talk about it within other videos, but I don't have a video that's just for backlog refinement because I was trying to cover all the areas of business analysis, and I realized I don't have a video on backlog refinement. So I thought, let me go out there and create a video for y'all to answer the question of when should backlog refinement occur. All right. So I hope you guys stay to the end because you know how I do it. I give you all the details and make sure you're all good, that you understand when you leave this video, you're clear. Okay. That's what we're doing right now. All right. Before we get into that though, as you noticed, your girl got her hair out today. Right? So I decided that I'm going to let my hair out. I'm going to just make sure I give it the air and the breathing room that it requires. So I'm all dolled up for my hair, getting it out and getting it some breathing room. But don't get used to it because, you know, the hairstyle changes a lot over here. Okay, so this is just what I'm rocking today. We'll see what happens in my other videos. All right, let's get back to the topic. So backlog refinement, what is it, right? The name alone is like, it almost feels like you're behind, right? It's a backlog. Like, who came up with that name? I don't know. It doesn't seem to fit what it is. But backlog it's really just a prioritized list. You can think of it as a task list. Here are all the items that we need to do, right? And so you'd hear terms like product backlog item, PBI, which just means it's one of the items on your task list that you need to complete. Okay, so don't get bogged down in the terms. You know, these things are just flowing. People call them all kinds of stuff. So the product backlog item is analogous to, I don't know if I'm saying it right anyway, to the user story, right? You know what I mean? So the PBI it's a user story. It's an item, right? But it could also be about whatever the item is in the backlog that needs to be done. So backlog refinement, we do this in agile, typically in agile scrum, where we will go through the backlog and discuss the items to make sure that there's clarity. So the main reason we do backlog refinement is to clarify the requirements. We want to make sure the team understands what we need to talk about, what we need to build, why we're doing it. We want to have that understanding of what the dependencies are, etc. So typically the people that you have in this meeting are not the entire team. If you have like a core team, that's who you'd meet with, but typically comprised of the scrum master, the business analyst, the product owner or the product manager or project manager, and a lead developer, somebody who is deep in the weeds that can tell you technically if this is doable or not. And you may have a QA manager in there to see how are you going to test it. So those could be the typical people that you would meet with. And again, the main reason why you do backlog refinement is to clarify the requirements, to make sure that the team understands what to build and to make sure that they're clear and they have any questions, that those questions are answered. And if you need to take it back to somebody else to answer, to come back and tell the team, then you would be the one taking that action item. The backlog refinement is also good for identifying the dependencies. So you may have these different things in the backlog, but you realize that, okay, this thing down here needs this thing up here to get done first, and we can't start this until this is done. So all of those dependencies between the different backlog items, the backlog refinement should help to bring that to light. Okay, because you're talking about it and you'll understand and uncover things as you go into more conversation. The third thing that the backlog refinement is good for is to prioritize the backlog. So while you're in that discussion, the product owner who has the final say as to what we build should be prioritizing the backlog to say, okay, we need to do this first. The developer might say, yes, but this has a dependency. Okay, now we put this here and do this after, and then so on and so forth, right? So they organize and prioritize the backlog from the top down so that they're working on the most important, most impactful, most thing that's less dependent first, and the other dependencies go after, right? So those are some of the things that we do in backlog refinement. Sometimes you might need multiple backlog refinements. I've had projects where I have a backlog refinement every day. And it's a lot, but that's what the project called for because things were changing so fast. There are multiple teams. There's so many things going on. I had to keep abreast of it, and I need to make sure that everybody else was. So I had backlog refinement every day. But in a typical Scrum team, you might want to have the backlog refinement the week before the sprint planning. So we could have 1 week is refinement, 1 week is sprint, 1 week is refinement. So you're always preparing the backlog for the next sprint. Now, sometimes one meeting for the week is enough. Sometimes you need more than one, maybe two meetings on the week where you don't have a sprint, so that you kind of lighten the burden of maybe the solution architect or lead developer, so they can focus on helping the people in the sprint and preparing for sprint planning, but you still get their attention to clarify what needs to happen for the very next sprint, right? So you can be doing it just in time like that. Now, where do you stop in the backlog refinement? Well, or where do you start? You typically start with what's next in the next upcoming sprint, and you stop where you think is enough for one sprint. Like, you don't have to refine the entire backlog. This is not waterfall. We have to go through all the requirements up front before you can actually say, yes, we have it refined. It's very rare that you're asked to complete the entire backlog before the project starts. Although, I think I have some of the weirdest experiences. Literally, I've been in a project where we were working with a consulting firm, and they had another client that was like, 2 paces to get to the actual client. And they said, we want everything in the backlog before the first sprint starts. And guess who had to do that? Yeah. So that was not fun. That was not fun at all. I did not enjoy that. And I think it's not a good way to work, to ask for everything in the backlog before you even start sprint 0. I think that is terrible. And it's not according to agile best practices. And I really hope that nobody else has to go through that pain. I did push back. I definitely pushed back. But this was a unique situation where this project was very time sensitive, and the team that was coming in to build were coming in to start building on the first day of the sprint. So there really wasn't any time. Yeah, so this was a very unique case, and there was lots of politics, and there was lots of leadership, and everybody was there, and VPs and CEOs, and everybody was just like all over it. So I was like, you know what, let me just do this and just get rid of these people out of the way. I can tell you, after PA sometimes, there is a lot of politics that you have to navigate, and sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. And it doesn't mean that you don't know better. Like, you know that you shouldn't be doing the entire backlog because things are going to change, and then you're not going to be able to adapt to change, and it feels waterfall. But each project is different. Every company is doing it differently. It's not a normal thing to have to do that. So typically, you would refine only what you need for the next sprint, and you do it just in time, piece at a time, so that you can adapt to change. If there's something that change, you have enough space to make that adjustment, and you can talk about what's relevant for the very next sprint without having to think way ahead. It's a better way to do it. And that's what we typically do in the backlog refinement. All right. So when should the backlog refinement occur? So you normally do backlog refinement on regular scheduled time, right? So it's not a good experience to just have ad hoc meetings here and there with this one and that one and try to manage calendars and all that stuff. It's difficult to do it that way. I would suggest that you schedule a recurring meeting that happens once a week or twice a week with the people that need to be in there. So they have it on their calendar and they know that every week at this time we're meeting to talk about the backlog. Whatever the items are that we'll discuss will differ, but what we're talking about is the refinement, and you'll have a set time in your calendar for that every week. I also think you can refine just in time. It depends on how fast your sprints run through. Like if it's a regular 2-week sprint, the time when you'll schedule for this would be, like I said before, the week before the start of the sprint planning, so you can have enough time to refine and to clarify, to update your acceptance criteria and all of that ahead of time, so your stories can be in the definition of ready by the time you get to sprint planning. I think that's a great approach. But some people have shorter sprints. It could be a 1-week sprint. Some people are releasing every day. So you may need to adjust your backlog refinement to match when your releases are going out or when you have your sprint planning. If you're working in like a Kanban situation where it's just a continuous development and there's no time block, you want to do your backlog refinement also scheduled, but probably more frequently, so you can have things ready for the next day or so on, so that they can continuously have something to work on, and you can continuously keep the backlog groomed, keep the backlog in definition of ready, where all the stories at the top actually already have the acceptance criteria they need and been approved, and you've had a discussion with the business and all that different stuff to make sure that the stories that you have can be built by the developers and they understand what each story is doing. So what's the benefit of doing backlog refinement? I think with this video, I've highlighted some of it already, but the main benefit is that you improve your sprint planning. You're going to do the backlog refinement. Everybody's going to be aware of what you're trying to build. They'll have had a chance to ask the questions. You've had a chance to review with the stakeholders. You've probably had meetings with them where they clarified things. So the backlog refinement is that meeting that will bring all of these things to light. And it really gives a chance for the core team, the main players in organizing the sprint planning, to talk about what they're going to do for the sprint planning. And you buffer your development engineers from having to be a part of all of these meetings. You and the scrum master and the product owner and the project manager and the QA manager, you all go into a meeting, you talk about what the different PBIs or user stories are, you hash it out, and you buffer the team from having to be in all of those discussions. So that by the time you include them in the sprint planning, that's already been taken care of. You've already talked about this. You already know what you're going to build. You already have the answers that they're probably going to ask. And now you have the answers to give them so that they can go off into the sprint and just write code, right? So you're providing that buffer for them. And you're also helping to create a space where all of this can be talked through, where you can clarify so that you're all sure of what it is that you're doing. The other thing about the backlog refinement, which is a benefit, is that it definitely does help reduce waste. Because if you didn't have this space to talk about this stuff, you could have different understandings of what it is. And then you all go off and build different things that don't interact or don't complement or don't work well together. And that's the problem with waterfall, that you did all of this stuff up front. When you give that the BRD or the PRD to the development team, everybody's disjointed, disconnected, and building different things, and it's going all over the place because they didn't have that benefit of having a space to sit and talk about these things continuously. So the benefit of having the backlog refinement is that it's a continuous meeting that you should be having to clarify the requirements, to make sure you have the discussions, to get all the answers so that you reduce waste. You are reducing the time that you're wasting in building the wrong thing because you didn't spend the time up front to clarify it. The next benefit of doing the backlog refinement is that it increases your productivity. And as a result of those prior two things I just mentioned, you become more efficient as a team, right? You go up the curve of, high performance, and you start building things and churning things out better because you had the time, the mental capacity to think about them before you're in a sprint, before you have the pressure of having to deliver because of some deadline or some regulatory compliance thing or some pressure from some management. You don't have to hear that noise. you can focus on just talking about how these things are going to work in the refinement. And then the team goes off and build it. And then the project managers and other people at that level can have their political conversation, right? But you need that space for the team, for the Scrum team, to be able to be clear as to what it is that they're building. All right, so that was my talk on backlog refinement. I hope it was a useful video. Please subscribe and do all the things they tell you to do at the end of YouTube videos, all that stuff. Check out my website at www.karaleise.com. I have some exciting thing over there. Go check it out. And also check out this Google Project Management Professional Certificate that I'm going to put right here. That's a great way for you to become a project manager using all of your business analysis skills. Click on the link for this. I think it's going to be in the description. Click on that link. Check out that course from Google, which is, when you get a course on Google, you're good. Okay, so do that. And I will see you guys next time in the next video. Take care.